transition pictures for Martin Luther King Jr., who was assassinated in 1968 in Memphis, and who was the #1 civil rights activist probably of all time. He was a preacher, basically, who went out and campaigned with a kind of Mahatma Gandhi type non-violence approach. He was part of the Montgomery bus boycott. You know, after Rosa Parks was asked to move down the back of the bus and wouldn't, he was part of the organizers of the boycott in Montgomery County after that. He had his finger in a lot of disruptive pies, to the point where the FBI was claiming he had extramarital affairs, that he was a communist. They were trying to subvert his actions. But he won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1964, plus a whole bunch of other medals posthumously too. And his impact on American society has been so great that they actually have a national holiday to honor his efforts to bring equality to America. So I went into his pictures. When I found him, he was in this tunnel that I always see, the metaphorical architecture of this transition phase. When I found him, he was up against a wall with his arms out. But he wasn't just standing against the wall, his face was pressed up against it. Now, I can't speak to people in this, other than in my imagination. But I felt like going over to him, leaning against the wall as well, and saying to him, "It's over. You can relax now. Whatever you've just been through, it's done." I don't think that registered at all, the idea that it was done. He was only 39 when he died. And he had considerable fire still in his belly. He had so much rage in him, so much frustration. He slides down the wall and just sits there. He's like a boxer between rounds. Somebody who's been punched and is down, but the bell's gone, and he's just recouping his energy, mustering his forces for the next round. The frustration was almost palpable. The disappointment, the annoyance. It's intense. When he stood up and walked along, because you can't stay still in these pictures, there is a momentum to this, always. As he walked along, in the cracks of the floor, there was blood. But I didn't sense that this was his blood. This felt like general blood. I know after he died, there were race riots all over America. Maybe that relates to that. But there was blood on the ground. He walked on. And he couldn't understand why there were no people around. There was no fuss. There was no angst. No pressure to act, to do stuff. It was all so easy, and he wasn't used to that. What was fascinating was that he, at this point, became so ordinary. It was almost like he just popped next door to borrow a lawnmower or some sugar or something. It was just so relaxed once he let go of his determination to fight. Once that was released, he became so humble and ordinary and approachable and affable. It's quite an extraordinary transformation from there to here. Like everybody else, he felt the pull of moving up this symbolic tunnel. And as he walked up, I could see something ahead, about 2/3 of the way up. You know, in cheap cabaret, they have a backdrop of tinsel. It's like a tinsel curtain of glittery, glistening strips of metal or whatever. I'm not even sure what they're made of, but it's just tinsel basically, but a long curtain of it. There was one of those across the tunnel. As he stepped into it, though, and the strands rubbed against his body, on the lighter underside of his hand, each hand, the tinsel left a mark. What is that? Then I wondered if the tinsel, which was glistening and bright and sparkly, represented his mortal accomplishments. His position as figurehead of a movement. The success he'd had in driving the civil rights movement forward. But it was also saying, you've got to leave that behind. That's the mortal you. You can't take that with you. Accomplishments don't go with you past this point. They simply are what they are in the three-dimensional realm. But hey, you don't forget them completely. This was part of your soul's journey. They left a mark. His soul would remember. The soul is like the passport that you take from one life to another. It's a stamp on his passport. He made a difference. He carries on through and completes his journey up the tunnel. So if the tinsel curtain was one thing that was very different about these pictures, this was the next part. Because as he stood in front of this dome, not fully understanding the process here, I don't think, there were beams of light shining in different directions, and one on him. And he couldn't see. I mean, he was just blinded. He had to do the whole thing on faith, just trusting that he was being led. Which is how it is for all of us, in life too. We are blind to what's going to happen to us. We have to trust that our feet are landing in the right place. He stepped forward into the light. As he went into the kind of metaphorical dome that I see, and merged with it, which is what everybody does, there was such a powerful sense of, if I dare say this, black fusing into white. Spiritual welcoming mortal. And fully absorbing and integrating it. As if grace, unconditional love, wanted to affirm you are part of the whole. You are an integral part of all that is. What you look like, where you were born, how old you are, what sexuality you are, doesn't matter and never did. Only humans, with all their fears and prejudices and their meta-narratives, only humans make those distinctions. To the universe, there's none. Everybody is welcome. Everybody is equal. Everybody is a part of the whole. That's what this felt like as he merged into the dome. Not as a social justice comment, because that's not what these pictures do. Just as a statement of truth. That in his life was never offered. He was always made to feel different, always made to feel inferior, always made to feel like somebody who didn't count as much as another guy. When he knew on the inside, at a soul level, that he was absolutely equal to everybody else. He just had to persuade the rest of the world to come around to that higher vision, that expanded consciousness perspective. But when he went through the light, there was no doubt at all. There was no doubt. He just became one with all that is. And he vanished. Very reassuring, I thought. Anyway, that's Martin Luther King Jr. Thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it. Like, subscribe, share if you want. Follow me on Twitter @CashPeters. Otherwise, I'll see you very soon. Thanks a lot, guys. Bye-bye.